It's September 14th, 2020. Tomorrow is the peace deal, and I found an article in the Washington Post that really is disturbing. It says Middle East peace deal or arms race. Proposed sale of F-35 jets to UAE prompts fears in Israel. Jerusalem. The proposed sale of advanced U.S. fighter jets to the United Arab Emirates is raising concerns among some security experts in Israel that the Middle East could be on the verge of an arms race, even as those two countries sign a peace deal Tuesday at the White House. Senior U.S. and UAE officials say the peace agreement is smoothing way for the Trump administration to proceed with the sale of long-sought F-35 stealth fighter jets and other sophisticated weaponry to the Persian Gulf state. That prospect is increasing in the likelihood that Israel and the other Middle East countries will in turn seek more advanced arms. In Israel, the proposed sale is tainting the otherwise great enthusiasm here for the agreement brokered by the White House to normalize relations with the UAE and Bahrain said, well, from a purely military perspective, I think it's a dangerous development. It is not just a new weapon technology. The F-35 is an entire weapons platform, said Chuck Freelich, a former deputy national security advisor in Israel, an analyst of the U.S.-Israel relations. He said the F-35s would represent a dramatic upgrading of the Emirates' military capability. Eli Cohen, Israel's intelligence minister, said in an interview that the historic peace agreements to be signed Tuesday will buttress the Israel's security by strengthening the alliance against Iran, which he called the main threat to the Middle East stability. At the same time, he said Israel, which already has a fleet of 20 F-35s, would object to any arms deal that erodes its military superiority in the region. We have a clear policy about maintaining our advantage and will protest any weaponry that might damage that advantage, he said. The U.S. and UAE officials have not disclosed details of the proposed sale, including the number of jets and how advanced a model. But under a 12-year-old law, the U.S. is committed to ensuring that Israel maintains the qualitative military edge. Another senior figure in Israel's defense establishment warned there was no guarantee relations between Israel and the UAE would remain amicable. Things change here rapidly, and we always need to be aware of this, said a senior figure who spoke on the condition of anonymity to address security discussions. Israel is a small country. Its military advantage allows it to maintain strategic virtual depth. Removing this edge is extremely worrying for Israel's security. The Israeli newspaper Israel-UAE, considered close to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, reported Sunday that the Israeli army is preparing to present the U.S. with a shopping list of advanced military hardware that would ensure Israel keeps its military edge. The newspaper said this list, being compiled by a special committee set up by Netanyahu and Defense Minister Benny Gantz, would likely include advanced munitions and an expedited delivery of V-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft, combat planes, and other weapons. The Israeli military would not confirm the accuracy of this report. Guys, I'm wondering if this is not what this is about. It's an arms race. Kind of interesting. According to media reports, the Israeli and U.S. Netanyahu privately condoned the proposed sale of the fighter jets to the UAE as part of an overall deal that including normalizing relations between UAE and Israel. But Netanyahu, who arrived in Washington on Monday ahead of the White House ceremony, has repeatedly denied agreeing to such an arrangement. Well, this is kind of concerning to me because I'm going to pull this down to where I was looking at something. I hope it's still there. Give me a second, guys. I'll leave the link to this, but this is kind of really disturbing here. I'll read some of this other stuff. A similar emergency declaration to advance the F-35 sale could be hard to defend. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo described the emergency declaration last year as one-time event. But Aaron David Miller, a former U.S. peace negotiator for Middle East, said it would be difficult for lawmakers to derail the F-35 deal even if they wanted to. It's very hard for Congress to take responsibility for blocking something that appears tethered to a peace agreement that promotes American national interest. At home, Netanyahu has been criticized for not informing senior members of his government about what exactly the agreement entails. That's very concerning. No one knows what it is. No one knows what is in this agreement, but it is certainly not peace for peace, said Nitzan Horowitz, head of the left-wing Meretz Party and a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee in the Israel Parliament, the Knesset. Horowitz, a leading advocate for peace with the Palestinians, said that there has been no discussion about the agreements inside the government or the Knesset, and that Netanyahu is not even consulted with his chief of staff, defense ministers, or foreign ministers. This has never happened before. Netanyahu has just bypassed all of them. I'm getting the Holy Spirit all over me, guys. Beyond the F-35, he said he was deeply concerned about potential sale of advanced cyber systems in the UAE. This is technology that can easily be passed on or fall into the wrong hands, he said. So I'll leave the link on this, guys. This is really, really, really concerning. You know, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction, is this why? So I will leave the link. God bless you all, family. We're seeing some very troublesome things happening. This is not peace. This is not peace. Jesus Christ is coming, guys. We all know it. Love you. Be blessed.